Hello, it's SpawnPoint and welcome back to another video. So I've owned my Tesla Model 3 for about 6 weeks now, and I wanted to give a review after those first 6 weeks and nearly 2,000 miles that I've covered, what I love, what I hate, what I would change, and answering some of the questions that I get regularly. So if you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen yesterday that I did a story asking you to drop any questions that you have about the car or my ownership, and I would cover them in today's video. As always, if you've got any questions at all about the car or my ownership, drop them in the comments below, as I do reply to every single comment that I receive. And first up, the looks and the appearance. Now, I absolutely love the look of this car. I mean, I think it's got so much presence on the road, and now that I've removed the aero wheels, I think it looks really sporty as well. So as you can see, I've obviously opted for the free white paint, and I'm actually really pleased that I did. I think it really pops against the dark wheels and adds quite a nice contrast. I've also already added a spoiler to the rear. Now, it's not the original performance spoiler. I'm not actually sure if you can even buy that, but it's a glossy replica that I bought online. I think it's totally transformed the rear of the car, and actually, I can't imagine it without one, and I don't really like it without a spoiler now. Something else that I've done is, other than putting my private plate on the car, is I've actually removed the hideous number plate holders that comes with the car. Not only do they stick out and add a huge unnecessary black box around the plate, they rattle as well. So every time you close the boot, the plate rattles, and to be honest, it sounds awful. And on the front, I've also opted for a vinyl plate instead. I love the stealthy look of this over the normal one. I mean, what do you think? And I'll be honest, I get so many comments about this car as well that it actually blows me away. So, I mean, it's a great conversation starter, as most people are actually genuinely interested in it. Sure, not everyone will take the leap of faith into owning an electric car, but it doesn't stop people from asking what it's like to own one. Also, don't forget that here in the UK, the Model 3 has really only been around for about 6 months. And those first 6 months were extremely limited in deliveries as well. So it's still quite rare to see one. I mean, during the 2,000 miles or so that I've driven, I mean, I can say I've probably only seen 5 or 6 on the road, excluding at superchargers or at the Tesla garage. So yeah, I mean, in summary, I love the look of this car. I think it looks great on the road. It's kind of quite an understated look. I think the front looks nicer than the rear, I'll be honest. I think the side profile as well is really nice. Now, the performance wheels, you know, the 20-inch wheels that you can get on the performance model, they do look better, I'll be honest. But I do like the aero wheels without the aero covers on. I think they are stealthy. They look sporty. They look almost like drag wheels, I would say. I really, really do like the high profile on these. And moving on to the power, the acceleration on this is incredible. Now, obviously, it's not the performance model, which I can only imagine is ridiculous when it comes to the acceleration, but the long range power delivery is still incredible. I mean, it's like switching a switch on when you put your foot down. There's zero delay, there's zero lag, it's just instant. So whether you're at the lights or leaving a 30 zone, as soon as you push that pedal, you're already going too fast. And it's really hard to compare it to anything else that I've driven, but once you've been in one or you've driven one, you'll understand the hype and you'll become quite addicted to putting your foot down. Every single person I've taken out in it has been impressed. I mean, what I actually do is I go for a little spirited drive. I kind of put the pedal down maybe 2/3 of the way, where they think I'm at maximum performance and maximum acceleration. Then I demonstrate the 0 to 60 with full power, and it blows everybody away. I don't think I'll ever get bored of this power as well, but if I do, then there's always the option of paying the £1,500 to drop to a 3.9 seconds over the standard 4.4 second car. So in the time that I've had it, not once have I had the opportunity, unfortunately, to race anything, which is a real shame, but I've got plenty of opportunities in the future to probably do that. If I wanted to go to the drag strip, I could do that as well, which I have done with previous cars. Okay, and next up, the range. So I chose the long range as I wanted a little bit more range over the standard range, amongst other things. So how does it do? It's winter, so range is definitely being affected, and it's been affected in the same way as mile per gallon in a petrol car. You know, cold starts, having your heaters on, and shorter trips. So the best efficiency that I've seen so far is 209 watts per mile over a 40-mile drive. That would give a projected range of about 358 miles best case. But this was purely for a test, so you can imagine how difficult it was for 40 miles not to put my foot down at all, just to kind of see what the car was capable of. So I don't think I could ever get it lower than 200 watts per mile, but realistically, my current average over the 2,000 miles is about 348 watts per mile, which would give a range of about 215 miles for about £10. Then if I take it out for a blast, I'll see maybe 400 to 500 watts per mile, but it's always worth it in the end. Using the heaters definitely has a big impact on the range, so preheating while charging or using the heated seats instead is definitely the best way to do it. So I guess buying one of these at this time of year will show me the worst range I can expect to see, but at least I've got the summer to look forward to. And next I wanted to talk about the brakes, or the lack of brakes you could argue. So I hardly ever use the brakes. I mean, I can literally drive to and from the office without touching my brakes at all. The regen is incredible and will literally allow you to drive the car just using the one pedal. How it works is, when you let off the gas pedal in a normal car, the engine starts to slow down, but very gradual. With this car, as soon as you let off, the car goes into regen mode and essentially acts like you're braking, to the point where your brake lights will come on as well, without actually using the brakes at all. I also drive mine in hold mode, which basically means that the car will come to a complete stop and won't creep forward at all. And prior to this car, I've only ever owned petrol cars and manual cars at that, so I've never driven an automatic before. So moving across to this car, it's obviously as good as driving an automatic, so it's completely changed the way that I drive a car, but very, very quickly. And I mean, within a couple of 100 miles, I very quickly got used to driving this type of car. So next up, charging. The most asked question that I actually get is, how often do you charge? Well, I could plug it in every single day if I wanted to, and it would take me about 10 seconds to do it. But I actually charge about 3 or 4 nights a week, just to keep it between 50 and about 85% range. Tesla themselves have said there's no advantage to running the battery low, so I just keep it topped up just in case I have, say, a spontaneous trip and need a couple of 100 miles the next day. And obviously you can check the in-car screen to see the remaining battery, or you can just open the app and view the same information there, or you can stop and start the charge there too. And last week I actually did a 290 mile round trip in a day, which was obviously outside of my range. I got one way, which was 145 miles, with 45% remaining. So I stopped off at Supercharger on the way home. And to be honest, the car actually charged from 40 to 80% faster than I could use the toilet and buy and eat some lunch as well. So 20 to 30 minutes stop on a 4-hour drive is pretty standard, really. I mean, I would do that anyway, whereas now I get a dedicated parking spot with free charging, and it's kind of an excuse really to stretch my legs on a long journey. And next up, the running costs. So again, one of the biggest questions that I get about this car is, how much does it cost to run? So I thought I'd try and break it down as best as I can, cover some of the costs that I've already incurred during my 6 weeks of ownership, and what I predict I'll pay over the next 12 months or so. So over the last 6 weeks, I've done close to 2,000 miles, and the only expense to me so far has been £95 in charging at home. Putting that into perspective, my last car, which was a BMW 335i, would have used the same £95 to cover 400 miles if I was lucky. Included in those 2,000 miles are 200 free supercharger miles. So if you use a referral code when buying a Tesla, you both get 1,000 free supercharger miles. I've also used some free charging at the local shopping centre, which is about 15 miles away. I predict, and bearing in mind I hope my efficiency improves over summer, I'll spend around £500 to £550 a year to cover 12,000 miles. Insurance, I'm spending £470 a year on insurance. That's more or less the same as what I was paying on my previous cars. That's with 10 years no claims, parked on a driveway, up to 12,000 miles. So considering the cost of the car, the power, the tech, it's not bad at all. Road tax, well, in the UK, there's no road tax to pay for this car. However, as it falls under the luxury car tax bracket, which means any car with a list price of 40,000 or more, it's then liable for £320 a year yearly tax, which is crazy, really. I mean, it's something I totally disagree with, as electric cars are generally more expensive anyway. Brakes. As I'm hardly using the brakes at all, I can't imagine I'll need to replace the pads or the discs for at least a few years, so no expense there. Tyres, well, one of the reasons I chose the long range over the performance as well was also down to the wheel size. So those tyres aren't cheap, and I've been there before spending £300 a tyre. The tyres on this car are around £150 each, as they are only 18s. Servicing is cheap, as you're literally needing to just rotate tyres, check your wiper blades and complete a brake fluid change maybe once a year. You're looking at about £100 a year maximum, unlike my last car where you're factoring in oil changes and coils and spark plugs and so on. So all in, assuming I would change my 4 tyres about once every 2 years, I predict I'll spend around £1,420 per year, and that's including the electric, that's including any servicing, the insurance, and again about 2 tyres a year on average. And for me, the favourite bit of this car is the tech. Now, you get over-the-air updates, so I mean literally there's no more requirements for visiting a dealership to get the latest software or bug fixes and patches and so on. So since owning, I've had several updates, which have included the 5% power increase. I've had new games, improved voice commands, and better autopilot features as well. So you obviously have things like YouTube and Netflix and Spotify, the inbuilt arcade. And now I use Spotify Premium at home already, so being able to use it in the car is great. I mean, I literally use it on every single journey. And the sound system, it's by far the best sound system that I've had in a car. I've had Bose, I've had Harman Kardon in previous cars, and this just blows them away. The low end is incredible, and it's just so clear as well. Paired with Spotify, it's an awesome place to be. And then you've got Sentry mode and dashcam recording, so the ability to record dashcam footage at the press of a button or the horn is great, and having the car protected during Sentry mode is useful as well. So it's not something I actually use all the time, it's definitely not something I have on every day, and that's mainly due to the battery drain, but it's something I enable when I feel like I need to. And onto autopilot, so the more that I've used it, the more that I like it. So if you viewed my previous video where I did talk about autopilot and I wasn't really convinced if it was something I would ever use, well, I did a 290 mile journey last week and I did use the autopilot for most of the way just to kind of test it out, and it's kind of effortless. It's almost too easy, to be honest. So sure, you've got to rest your hand on the steering wheel or press the steering wheel every 15 seconds or so, but to be honest, you should be watching the road anyway. But it's a real joy to use, and I can see it being really useful for those long journeys as well. And how about using it daily? So I work from home and I don't actually get a chance to use this car every day, but it's still used by my wife, so it's definitely a daily car. And when I visit the office once or twice a month, I obviously use this car for that, and it's brilliant for the commute. So I've got 2 young children as well, and this is perfect for them too. There's plenty of room in the back, and the boot is large enough for everything I need to put in there. I mean, at the beginning of December, I literally put an 8-foot Christmas tree and transported it in the boot with the seats down. Day-to-day range is never a problem. It's highly unlikely I'll ever do more than 200 miles in a day. And if I do, it'll be maybe a few times a year. I can supercharge. And after 3 to 4 hours of driving, again, stopping for 30 or 40 minutes to get a bite to eat, to let the children stretch their legs, have a rest, go to the toilet and so on, it's always worthwhile. And onto things that I either miss or would like to see added to the car. So the first one for me is a 360-degree parking camera. So the cameras are already there, and it would be great if when you were trying to park into a bay, whether it be front-facing or rear-facing, that you could enable the side cameras as well as the rear camera, which you can already do manually. So again, some cars out there allow you to do this. You can do a 360 kind of bird's eye view of your car as you're parking. So I think that would be really beneficial to see added. Also, I think the ability to view and delete Sentry footage or dashcam footage from inside the car without the need of removing the USB stick and plugging it into my MacBook, it would just be really useful if there was an interface in the car where you could view that information really. So sometimes when you get back to the car after having Sentry Mode enabled, you have a little message on the screen to say that there have been 3 or 4 events while you've been away, and you have no idea what those events are until you get home. You remove the USB stick, you take it inside, you plug it into your laptop or your MacBook, you view the footage and you realise it was just a passing car and there was nothing to worry about. But again, if you could return to the car, press the button, view the information there and then, view the footage, even if there was something that had happened within a few seconds, you could view that footage immediately as opposed to waiting until you got home. So I think that would be something that should definitely be added in the future. Tinted windows. So most cars now leave the factory with tinted windows. So it's a real shame that Tesla don't offer this as standard. It's something that I might do in the future, but to be honest, the rear vision is so poor already when you're trying to reverse. You have to use the camera. So making it even darker, to be honest, will probably cause more issues than anything else. Another one for me is a pedestrian horn. So like if the horn had a pressure sensor, so if you lightly pressed it, it would make a quiet horn sound so you could warn pedestrians before you potentially run them over. But overall, I absolutely love this car. It's by far the best car that I've ever owned or even driven. It's fast, it's quiet, it's efficient, it's full of tech, and it looks awesome as well. So I know I've only owned this car for 6 weeks, but with the constant updates that we're receiving, I know I'm going to enjoy this car for years to come. Let me know in the comments if you own or want to own one of these and which spec would you go for. And that's it for today's video. So I hope my overview of my first 6 weeks of ownership was useful. And if you are looking to buy a Model 3 in the future, feel free to ask any questions below. And as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram. Until next time.